Okay, Jill, I'm going to pass over to you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, that's a good start, isn't it? I'm going to just share my screen. I've got a few slides to share with you. Is that working okay? Perfect. So just to clarify, this is the first of 3 sessions that we're running. This one's around establishing effective partnerships between youth work and schools. And we have a second one running on the 24th of May, which is looking more closely at evaluating partnership working. And the third one on the 7th of June, which looks at the process of joint self-evaluation. So they've all got a slightly different emphasis, but they're all based around a piece of collaborative work that we did across the West Partnership last year with, as Kat said, 7 partnerships, those 7 partnerships that you see there, and we'll have partners who were involved in that piece of work at all of the sessions. So we're really pleased that today we've got Jackie and Maureen. So Jackie is the youth work practitioner at Kirkintilloch High School, and Maureen Daniel is the head teacher there, and we'll hear from them today about their kind of experience of establishing a really effective youth work and school partnership there. So in terms of today's session, what we're covering is just a little bit at the beginning around kind of people's perceptions of roles between youth work and school, some short reflections on the value of collaboration based on the whole West Partnership collaborative inquiry, and then the biggest part of the session today will be with Jackie and Maureen talking about their experience of establishing the partnership that is working so well there. So I'm going to hand over to John now to do that first bit about looking at roles. John.
Thanks, Jill, and hello, everybody. I always like to start with a wee Menti exercise, so we're going to get you thinking for a little while here. This is just a wee exercise taken from a resource that's out there to use called Lost in Translation, which just has a few little exercises to encourage discussion between youth work and school practitioners. So if this works, we're going to do a little game of truth or myth. Hopefully you're able to get into the Menti there, and shall I share it on the screen?
I'll stop sharing, John, and then you should be able to do that, hopefully.
Okay. I'll just try that again. So I've put the links in the chat, folks, so hopefully you should be able to find your way towards that. And people are in there already. Excellent. Well done. Thank you. So first question up there, you can see youth work is about playing table tennis and hanging about with your pals. Is that true or is it a myth? Okay, so I think there's general consensus out there that what we're talking about there is a myth. And maybe that's a kind of caricature that's an easy one to spot. But I suppose the point we want to make there that youth work is part of the education service, if you like, in Scotland. It's certainly got a focus on learning and development of young people. So it might use a range of informal ways to engage young people and engagement tools, but the focus very clearly is on learning and development, and the relationship between the youth worker and young people is key to that. So we're going to hear later on in the session today about the youth work outcomes and skills and how those have been used through the collaborative inquiry that we've been involved in. So, okay, let's move on to the next one. There are only a couple of youth awards that young people can get out of school. Okay, so we're switched on to these questions, I think, already. Good. One of the messages I suppose we want to get out there that there's a range of ways of recognising young people's achievements out with the formal curriculum. One of the key areas in terms of youth work is youth awards, and people might be aware of the publication Amazing Things that shows you there's dozens and dozens of different types of informal and non-formal ways of recognising young people's achievements in their community. And the Awards Network, which is a national body that brings together about 35 or so of the big national providers of youth awards. They are the ones that manage the Amazing Things. We'll put the link to their site in the chat, and if you haven't seen that before. Huge numbers of youth awards being achieved by young people in Scotland every year. Pre-pandemic, that was routinely over 100,000 in a year, and those numbers are going back up now again. Next question. Youth work outcomes have got nothing to do with Curriculum for Excellence. Okay, so if you've been paying attention to the first couple of questions, that one's yeah, fairly clear. I suppose, again, it's a key message we want to get across. Youth work contributes to the aims of Curriculum for Excellence, and young people are learning skills and attributes through their involvement in youth work that really makes an impact on their learning and on their health and well-being. Next one's back to youth awards. Youth awards are only valuable to young people if they attract insight tariff points. Maybe one that needs a wee bit more thought. No, clearly not. Oh, right. So that's, I suppose, what we want to show there is that actually youth awards can be valuable to young people regardless of whether they're on Insight. Obviously, one of the challenges for schools is that Insight's one of the key ways that you know, achievements and attainments are measured for young people. But also we've done quite a lot of work with schools who recognise that, you know, there is a world of achievement for young people that isn't necessarily reflected on Insight at the moment. And people will know there's actually a national review that's just got underway, I think, on Insight. So it will be interesting to see how that develops. So we'll move on to the next one. The last one. Pupil equity funding can be used for interventions that take place out with term time or in non-school settings. Now it looks like the options are a bit strange for that one. So if we say option 1 is true and option 2 is myth, and we can just ignore option 3. Great. Thanks for that. So the PEF guidance is quite clear that you know, PEF funding is there to be used flexibly by schools, and consideration should be given to how schools can work with community partners in working collaboratively to look at interventions that address the poverty-related attainment gap. So PEF funding can be used for a range of creative interventions if they're meeting the needs of learners and young people in that school. Okay, thank you for participating in that little exercise. If we put the slides back up, Jill, please. And the next slide. So I suppose what we really want to do is just emphasise the points coming out of the quiz there in terms of the contribution that youth work makes to Curriculum for Excellence. And we're going to hear a bit about that in some of the stuff that we look at today. So YouthWork's part of that education system. Youth workers are planning and delivering non-formal learning opportunities. Those can enhance and complement the formal curriculum. And they're often, for some young people, can be key to their engagement in learning, overcoming barriers to their learning. So a key partner in terms of the contribution towards the aims of Curriculum for Excellence. Next slide, please. So a bit of the kind of policy context, and we won't labour this stuff because I think people are probably quite familiar with it. But the key message we want to get over is that partnership working is threaded through a lot of the national guidance that's out there for schools, and it's also key to some of the changes in the direction of travel that we're seeing in education. So people may remember the OECD review of Scottish education and Curriculum for Excellence from a few years ago, where very much there was a focus on the need for partnership working and having specific roles for the different elements of Curriculum for Excellence. And we now have, in the last 6 months or so, had the national conversation on education reform. We're waiting to get the feedback on that at the moment. But very much partnerships and key to some of that work there as well. And some of you might have seen the interim report from the independent review on assessment and qualifications recently from Professor Hayward, and again a focus in the interim report there on recognising young people's achievements across all of their lives, so within school and in their communities. And key focus of this piece of work has been around the partnership elements of the Refreshed Attainment Challenge. So we've already said the guidance that came out last year very much saw the Attainment Challenge as a collective effort. Schools can't and shouldn't be expected to address the poverty-related attainment gap on their own. So there's a key role for a range of partners, including youth work and youth work partners. Next slide, Jill.
Thanks. I think we're onto my little bit now.
Okay.
So this is just reflecting back on those 7 partnerships that were part of the collaborative inquiry last year. I suppose they were all really clear about why they wanted to establish partnerships and why it made sense for them to invest in partnership working. And the kind of key things that we heard from senior leadership teams within schools were that youth work brings a unique pedagogy, and that youth work practitioners bring some really helpful complementary skills into school with them. And that when that relationship with youth work is working really well, it can help to influence a really nurturing school culture and ethos. So it kind of has an impact on the wider culture of the school. And probably unsurprisingly, really helpful in terms of making those connections between school, home and community, and young people in particular recognise those as well. The fact that they often knew youth workers from other settings than school made those relationships with them more straightforward and closer in different ways. And I suppose in terms of kind of the partners that were involved in that piece of work, there's a real sense of the value of the reciprocity in the skills and knowledge that formal educators bring and youth workers bring. And you see on the right there, through the inquiry, we gathered a huge amount of really compelling data from young people about the difference that youth work was making to them in the school setting, and I suppose how they saw the youth work approach as being quite different in some ways from working in the classroom. I'm part of the youth work and schools team within YouthLink Scotland, and we're actually one of the national programmes that's funded by the Scottish Government as part of the Scottish Attainment Challenge. And it was, again, just talking to the senior leaders involved in the inquiry last year. They were really clear about the importance of youth work as, you know, part of their approach to equity in the school. And that's just a couple of the quotes there from those individuals. I'm going to stop sharing my presentation and start hopefully sharing. I've got a little film which comes from Kirkintilloch, so comes from the Maureen and Jackie's school, but it's nice because it has also the voices of some of the young people talking about their experience of youth work in school. Don, will you just give me a thumbs up if the sound's working?
We can't hear the sound at the moment, Jill.
Let me try again. Hang on a sec.
No, I don't think
Still
it-
not.
No.
I know this
Yeah,
might be
what-
obvious. Have you selected share with sound?
I have, yeah. I have. Don't know what's going on there. It's weird.
Jill, if you want to put the link in the chat, one of us could play it for you.
Yeah, sure. Let's see.
It's a good wee film, folks. It's worth waiting for.
Sorry about this.
Oh, I might have it here.
Do you?
I think so. If I can. The laptop's just decided to run really slowly. Uh-huh. Give me 1 second.
Thanks, Kat.
Oh no, I did. Do you know what I did? I just didn't. Oh.
That's the link in the chat now. If that's an easier or quicker way of getting to it, that's the Regional Improvement Collaborative page on our website. If you just, the video is just quite close to the top of that page.
Okay, let's see. Is that working?
Yeah.
Great.
I think what makes this partnership work is absolutely relationships. Relationships at the core of everything. Relationships between staff and the youth worker, relationships between the youth worker and the young people and the families, a different type of relationship. There's less formality. The conversations aren't just about education attainment. They can cover a whole range of different topics, which is really, really good for parents and for families to be able to access. And just that kind of absolute care, absolute commitment to getting the best out of every young person. That's what's making this work, because we're already committed there, and now we have another partner working alongside us to just bolster what we do and to make it that little bit better and to bring our families into the school.
Because like, sometimes I wouldn't go out of my class, but then like you find Jackie and she helps you. Like it'll be hard, but then like Jackie like actually fixes it, and then you go in.
Feel we're maybe just that wee missing bit of the jigsaw that's maybe been missing over the years in schools, where you've got that link now, that you've got somebody that young people can come to and speak to, that they do trust, that their confidence is in. and we can feed that back through our wider links in the school as well.
Well, youth work for us plugged a really, really important gap in that. We'd been working very hard to develop our curriculum and to make sure that we were looking at great tariff points for the kids and super opportunities. But there was a group of young people for whom confidence, for example, was an issue. Communication skills were an issue. Engagement in class could be a barrier for them. And usually young people like that really thrive on a kind of relational approach. And what we did was we targeted those young people, and they either worked in small groups or individually with their youth worker. And the very important skills of communication, of self-confidence, of self-awareness, and then being able to work as part of a team highly effectively and to appreciate each other within the team, they were the first things that Jackie really worked to develop.
To me, like, I wouldn't speak to a teacher like I do to Jackie, so it would be important to have like a person like Jackie, because like I'm pretty sure you'd be more confident to like tell her about everything that's going on and your feelings and that.
We know what we're looking for in the children and what you're wanting to develop within them. Then you can work on their communication, you can work on their confidence, we can look at how their weeks are panning out, like if they're planning and organising, all these different things, and a different approach to how we deal with young people.
Those young people were better able to learn, better able to be part of a team, to regulate their feelings and emotions. So if they felt that something was unfair or they weren't coping with their learning, they had strategies in place to regulate their emotions, to deal with that. And they also had a safe person that they could go to talk to, in addition to their teachers, that they could then work out how they were feeling and what their barriers were, and then became much more participative as a result.
My relationship with the school leadership team is fabulous. I'm very included within the team. It's seamless. I think that's probably one of the best words I could use to describe it.
What's really important is the value that you place on your youth worker, and I think that's quite essential, that your youth worker feels a valued part of your team.
I would say you should have youth workers in school, because like for a lot of people they can't speak to somebody like at home, so I'd say they're always there to help, and like their wee groups that they do are like quite helpful for some people that are like finding it hard with like teamwork and confidence and relationships.
Thanks, Kat, for helping me out there. That's great. Hopefully it was worth the wait. So we're going to move now into the kind of main part of the session, which is really an opportunity for you to hear directly from the head teacher of Kirkintilloch High School, Maureen Daniel, and the youth work practitioner who's based in the school, Jackie Adam. And John, I think you're going to kind of lead with a few interview questions for Maureen to start with.
I will do, and it's great, Maureen and Jackie, to have you in real time, and not, it was kind of sticking a bit when I was watching the video, so it's nice to see you in real life there. But Maureen, maybe start with yourself. You can maybe tell people a wee bit about the catchment at Kirkintilloch High and maybe some of the barriers that young people face in your school community.
Well, do you know, John, it's a really rewarding place to work because you really get to make a difference to young lives. The school roll's risen quite dramatically from 500 young people to over 700 now since 2016. 75% of our young people come from SIMDs 1 to 4, which is quite unusual in our local authority. And we cater for 50 care experienced young people. 23% receive FME, which is not the full entitlement, but parents are proud and don't always apply. And many of our young people are trauma affected and have really experienced quite horrific adverse childhood experiences, but they're wonderful young people and you wouldn't necessarily know that. So we have to make sure that our provision has to be carefully tailored to meet their needs and respond to their needs and provide a very safe and nurturing space for them in order that they're happy enough to learn. And I think also cost of the school day is a very keen focus for our school to make sure that it's very participative for absolutely everybody that walks through the door.
I think one of the things that came out of the inquiry that we did was the real crucial nature of having a kind of inclusive and partnership culture, and you talked a bit about that a bit in the film. But as head teacher, how would you describe your own role in leading and developing a school culture?
I think it changes as you go through your headship. I think initially it was all about observing and absorbing the culture that I'd inherited and analysing carefully with your colleagues and your children how effectively the provision was meeting the needs of the community and how it also fitted with my own values to help lead the school. So we consulted as a community on our shared vision and values, and we effected quite a culture shift that was more responsive to our needs at that particular time. And I think my role is to continually build that community by modelling the values that we've agreed unstintingly in the face of challenge sometimes, but also listening to and remaining responsive to the continually changing needs of the community that we serve. So that means you need to recruit the right staff, support the staff that you have to meet learners' needs with shared values and vision for improvement, and provide a commitment to those staff and pupils to provide training to secure the approach that you kind of want to deliver. And that's a kind of ongoing part of the job, is making sure you're able to deliver what you need to do for those lovely kids.
And particularly with looking at culture in terms of how you make that conducive to better partnership working.
Well,
what have you done right about that?
So we've done quite a lot, and as well as changing the culture, we had to really adapt our curriculum. So everything that happens within our culture is based on the kids' selected vision, which is dream big, work hard and show kindness. So that's at the core of all of our expectations, and it's for pupils and staff. We don't have school rules, but we expect everybody to be dreaming big and showing kindness. And we believe in kind of connection before correction. So all of our policies are relational and trauma informed. And it's not always easy, you know, sometimes there can be a pull towards looking towards, you know, people maybe want something more punitive, but most staff are so kind and caring with support and a listening ear. So I think what we kind of have to do is make sure that we cater for the kids' needs and that we bring in the correct partners to the school to deliver our vision with shared values and well-being and nurture underpinning all of the work, and helping to build a positive learning community through the changes in the curriculum that we brought on board has really helped. And bringing in foundation apprenticeships, for example, and bringing in different courses that weren't mainstream linear curriculum courses. And that's where Jackie's been absolutely fantastic too, because it's just been an added resource for us, as well as bringing in partners to help deliver the curriculum. We have our own in-house youth worker who delivers wider achievement opportunities and enhances the curriculum, and that's been great.
And how did that partnership with Youth Work come about? What were the kind of origins of it?
Well, initially it was a lovely, it was a super bonus for us. We had a 3-day-a-week youth worker, and we've had 2 youth workers that were part-time, and they were both great. They both did fabulous work. However, the problem was that the young people that we targeted to work with them were young people who needed to be able to trust, to have consistency, and to have a trusted adult there all the time. So it didn't work for them if Wednesday night had been particularly traumatic and they came in on Thursday and their youth worker wasn't there. And so I was then approached by our CLD lead for the local authority to ask if I would be on the panel for a full-time youth worker. I would suggest a bit as handoff for that. And we recruited Jackie. And what was amazing about that was we were able to really judge from that interview panel what the values were like of the youth worker and what a great fit they would be for the school. So that enabled us to recruit somebody whose values really echoed our own. And although initially the funding was temporary, and that was a bit restrictive because we couldn't really plan it within our timetable and within our curriculum, it's now permanent. And what's absolutely brilliant about that is that Jackie's able to do both reactive work, but also there's actually timetable provision for wider achievement for the kids so that they get timetabled awards. And that's due to the kind of permanent nature now of the post, which is brilliant.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I think it was interesting across the different schools involved in the collaborative inquiry. There were different funding models for the youth work in schools, but really fantastic to see, and can tell that that's been kind of made into a permanent post. We're going to hear from Jackie in a minute, but how would you describe the youth work team's roles within the school, Maureen?
I think it's totally invaluable now, and now that we have it, I think we would really struggle to do without it. It bolsters the confidence of the young people. It's another resource that we have at our fingertips to support our young people who really need that kind of relational work just to help regulate their emotions and feelings. It definitely raises attainment, because what you do is you get young people who come to school and perhaps aren't ready to learn, And then Jackie waves her magic wand, and suddenly our learners are more ready to adapt to the classroom. They know what their plan is for the day. They've been fed breakfast bars. They've had a nice soft start. They've been with their friends, and in a very planned and responsive way to meet their needs, they're then able to go to class and access the curriculum really, really effectively. And some of them have very bespoke timetables where their curriculum actually involves that work with Jackie through the day. And so, you know, really our aim is always to have happy young people, and Jackie's an invaluable tool in letting that happen.
And I think you've started to answer my next question there, really, but you know, in terms of how you think your youth work partnership is helping to improve pupils' attainment, you've mentioned a range of the things there, I think, already.
Yeah, but even more so now, we've been able to plan for attainment around Jackie working with teachers. So it's given us kind of joint accreditation. So as well as raising attainment in terms of the young people's readiness, there are also planned opportunities to deliver part of the curriculum. So for example, the SQA Personal Development Award sitting alongside Saltire Awards and Dynamic Youth Awards. So young people are doing barista training and various skills as part of their timetable day, and they're getting that kind of lovely combination of SQA awards plus youth awards that we didn't really have at our fingertips before as part of the planned curriculum.
Fantastic. We talked a bit earlier on about the kind of skills that you know, the youth work approach is a, you know, it can bring that kind of added value. What added value have you seen in the school from you know, the kind of youth work approach?
It sounds ridiculous, but it is. It's kindness and happiness. It's children. We have a lovely big youth work room, and it's constantly full. Jackie had the audacity to take a couple of days of annual leave last week, and the kids were quite traumatised. Well, where is she? But I think it's the informality of approach. The children really enjoy it. They enjoy the fact that they can go and they don't have to be in a classroom setting. It's very relaxed for them, and many of our kids need that to help them to regulate their emotions and feelings to go on with their day. It's just a really, really positive space for them, and it's a really positive service that we have in the school that it's just lovely.
Fantastic. Thanks, Maureen. I'm gonna pass over to Jill now to speak to Jackie. If folk have any questions that you want to ask yourselves, then please feel free to put them in the chat as we're going through it. But I'll hand over to you, Jill.
Thanks, John. Jackie, yeah, your turn now. Oh, that's okay. So yeah, it'd just be really great to get your perspective on when you were establishing the partnership, how you worked both with the school leadership team and with the young people to work out where the needs were and what the needs were.
Well, I was extremely lucky to come into the school when Maureen had already laid down all these fabulous foundations for Kirkie High School. So I do feel I sort of come in and hit the ground running because there were so many things already in place for us. Working alongside guidance, the senior management team, they were identifying young people for me. I had the opportunity to go and just be a part of some of the classes to be able to identify young people myself as well, which was really good. That was a really good sort of start for me, and to get to know the teachers, to get to know the young people, to get to know the school. So that's how we started off identifying young people. Guidance were fabulous. They identified groups of children that we were able to work with, and individuals, and you come across them yourself because I was so out and about in the school and getting to know everybody and getting to know the feel of the school that you do start to speak to everybody, and you just have that sort of, I don't know, it was just a really good effect with everything, that you had the children coming to you, and I was very open to going in and speaking to them. Some I actually already knew because I was a youth worker already for East Dunbartonshire Council, so I was quite lucky that some of the kids that I had worked with previously prior to COVID were now at Kirkintilloch High School, so there was that lovely sort of in as well, so people already knew me, which gave that, it meant that other young people were able to let young people know that they knew me, and it's just been great. But yeah, it was a very positive sort of fast start for me, which was required, but it was really down to the work that was already in place via Maureen, to be honest. I did come into a very good positive environment where I just slotted in and was able to work with everybody. It was great.
Maureen has talked about this a bit as well, but can you, again, just from your perspective, just say a little bit about how you worked with Maureen and the wider SLT to define your role and purpose as you joined the school?
Yeah, so Maureen line managed me when I first started in the school, and she was a great help. She was able to point me in the right direction of people. She gave me some children to work with initially. We had planning meetings to discuss what we were going to do in terms of the wider achievement awards at the time. And then I just sort of filtrated out throughout the school through guidance through the rest of SMT of the identification of young people. So it was almost like, it's hard to describe because I'll be honest, I was worried coming into this environment because I thought, I don't know how this is going to be. It was a massive change for me in terms of a full-time career, and it just all fitted into place. I know I spoke about in the video about the jigsaw, but it was almost like there was this just small piece that fitted right in, and it was youth work. And I don't mean it's small in terms of the impact and the type of work. I just mean there was so many other things already in place at Kirkintilloch High School, and then youth work slotted in and just bolstered on, and that's how it's been ever since, to be honest.
Thanks, Jackie. Can you say, I guess it's really important, isn't it, in these partnerships that there's a continuous conversation almost with the school leadership team, where you're kind of gathering evidence of what's changing for young people and reviewing that. Can you tell us how that works in the school at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, we have a spreadsheet up and running. It's a PSR, it's called. And every Monday I meet with one of the deputy heads and the wellbeing PT, and guidance teachers are welcome to come along as well. And we have every young person that has any sort of referral in the school, whether it be a group, whether it be one-to-one work, whether it be for different bits and pieces, they all go into this spreadsheet. Their allocated time, whether it be with myself or wellbeing or with AIL, and then we evaluate that at the end of the time that they're given. And the evaluations come through the young people. We get them to just write a wee bit about how useful the work's been, if it's helped them, what the impact's been. That's fed back, and then it's put onto the spreadsheet. So every piece of work that we're doing in the school is recorded and evaluated and kept.
And I'm guessing that kind of informs how you evolve what you're doing going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So this is really to you both, I think. Maureen, we hear you at the beginning of the video saying this, what makes this partnership work is relationships. And I just wanted to give you both an opportunity, I suppose, to say a bit more about those relationships, particularly the relationship between you and Jackie. What are the ingredients, do you think, that have allowed the pair of you to develop and establish such a productive, such an effective relationship?
I think the biggest thing for me is how much I just really value Jackie. I think she's wonderful, but that's because of who she is and what she does. You know, this is a person with immense energy that really wants to improve outcomes for children. And I feel really blessed to have her in my school and have her on my staff. And I think that's been my experience of youth work, has been people who really want to make an impact on young people's lives, and Jackie's been outstanding with that. So I just, you know, a relationship works when you really, really value what someone else is doing for your kids. And I think that's how I feel towards Jackie. I really value what she does.
Thanks, Maureen. Jackie, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
I think Maureen and I share the same values, which I think was one of the biggest things for coming into the school. But what I would say also is, from the minute I stepped in the door, it was such a friendly environment. It was such a positive environment, and everybody's made to feel so welcome. And I think because our values aligned, it was just such a positive thing going forward. And Maureen is obviously in charge of all the staff in here and everything that's going on, but she made so much time for me at the start, which I'm also thankful for, because that made my work here easier, and I was always able to go to her. And it's been such a good path. I can't speak highly enough of it, to be honest. And I feel that has made the difference, because to be able to come into school with all these lovely values and all this positivity and hit the ground running like we did, it just made the job so much easier for me, to be honest. But yeah, it's been great and continues to be great.
Thanks, Jackie. And finally, again, to both of you, what would you say to other schools that are considering establishing a Youth Work in the Schools partnership? You know, what advice would you give them?
Go for it. It's a brilliant resource and a brilliant asset. And I think if you really wanted to know the value of it, it would be to ask the young people. Like I say, Jackie went away for a couple of days last week and the young people were, where is she? What's going on? Because they just love her, and it's just brought so much to the school and so much to the kids. So I would strongly recommend it. And the only advice that I would give to any other colleagues would be to make sure you invest the time, because it's well worth it.
Thanks, Maureen. And Jackie, any advice that you would give?
Model it on how our school have done it, model it on what Maureen's done. And I don't mean that in a big-headed way for myself, I mean for what I come into. I would also say, and I do feel it's so important, and I feel I've mentioned this every time, and it might seem such a small thing, but give them the space. Like, I know you can't see everything, but I have this lovely big room that has couches. I'm here permanently. The kids know to come here. I think you need to have that as well, because you need to establish where the youth worker is, to give them cupboard space almost, and smaller spaces doesn't work. To have this, and I've been so lucky. I started off in a slightly smaller room, and Maureen gave me this bigger room just at the end of last year, and it's been brilliant. And you need that space, you need to be established. But definitely, if you were looking for a model, then it's Maureen.
It's us.
Jill, I know we have one of my HMI colleagues on the line, Sheila Brown, and Sheila, you've obviously got experience of youth work and school partnerships around the country, and I know you've got recent experience of going out to Kirkintilloch. Just thought it might be interesting to bring you in for your own observations on what you think makes a good partnership. In terms of
think
youth work and
I mean, you know what Maureen and Jackie have said. I think I was nodding away as you were talking, and I did have the pleasure of going to Kirkintilloch a few weeks ago, and they made me very welcome, and we had a really useful chat, because I was interested in finding, I'd seen the video, and I was interested in finding a bit more about, I suppose, what you've talked about, what works. And I think what works is what you've said: parity of esteem, a partnership that is equal and is valued, a clear set of visions, and you know, a shared set of what you're trying to do. And that came across in that visit. I was only there a couple of hours, but that really came across, and the culture you've created was very obvious from that. The other thing I wanted to sort of pick up, and I know that we touched on it when I was there, was that thing about skills. Maureen, you know, we talked a bit about skills and how we track skills, because it's something we're quite interested in, because, you know, I'm on some of the secondary inspections and things, and, you know, wondered if you wanted to say a wee bit about how you're beginning to do that, because I think I said to you at the time, it's something that we see around the country. It's not as strong as it could be, and I was really interested in your approach.
Thank you, Sheila. Well, it's something that for a few years we've been working on, developing our employability skills with local employers. In terms of, we're developing our curriculum, we want to know what employers want, what are the skills that they're looking for, and how do we serve our local workforce, which was really important for the kids. So we developed those a few years ago, and initially it was really just to make the curriculum relatable to employment, and staff would share those skills when they were touching upon them in a particular topic or lesson. But now what we do is we actually track the skills, and the purpose of that is to identify not just achievement that we can then award and recognise, which is really important, and we can share with parents and do share with parents, but also gaps, equity. You know, we know there are families for whom they're able to take their children out to clubs and do all sorts of different things, and we also know there are other families for those opportunities don't arise. But they should all have the same opportunities, and it's our job, we feel, to try and plug that gap. And so using the skills tracker, what we're able to do is to see what people have and what people need next, and how we can then tailor our provision. And we're doing it in a very simplistic way to try and make it workload friendly and easy for staff. But actually, when you start to do it, it's really interesting. One of our skills is work experience, and I think we probably thought there was a deficit there, and we're looking towards thinking about taster days and employability days for the kids in third year in the BGE. But in actual fact, once you start to track it, you see, for example, whenever we recruit staff, the pupils interview them well before I interview them, because you know they're the clients, aren't they? They're the consumers. So from that, though, they're gaining such brilliant work experience. They're learning how to recruit. They're learning how to judge people at an interview, and through that we can track the skills, and we have all that there on their wee profiles and reported to parents. And it's just through the tracker that we use that we do so.
Yeah, and I think you demonstrated that really well. You know, when I was there, and you know the sort of stage you're at, and you know, just encourage you to continue that, because it was really interesting. So thank you for that, and I was very glad to contribute today as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
No problem.
Thanks, Sheila. So I guess we've got 10 minutes. If people who are in the meeting today have got questions, particularly for Jackie and Maureen, but for any of us really. I see someone typing in the chat. I'm going to just share in the chat there's a number of resources there, including some of the case studies from the West Partnership Collaborative Inquiry. So these are all potentially things that might be of interest. The first two first three are professional learning resources that have been developed through the Youth Work in Schools partnerships team to support partnership at all different stages, really establishing, but also ways of reviewing partnership working as well.
I just come in again. Sorry, just that nobody else is sticking their hand up. It was just one of the things that Jackie mentioned. I think I just wanted to reflect on was that thing around having that space and the importance of having that space, because we've had feedback from youth workers before when they've maybe been based in schools that they feel as if you said like they're stuck in a cupboard, and it's, you know, they're in and out, and you know, taking stuff. I think having that base and being part of the school is really important. Really important.
We've got a question there.
Sheila.
Sorry, we've got a question there from Miss O'Donnell. I don't know if you want to come in just to, so it's, you mentioned well-being, like a hub within the school. How does that fit with youth work? Is there much crossover?
Jackie, do you want to talk about the crossover?
Yep, sorry, just realised I was on mute. Yeah, again, just a strong partnership between both of us. Obviously, we deal with a lot of the same young people. So wellbeing is up in the floor above myself. They have a bigger space. They maybe have groups of children in at a time, or different people dropping in. We can refer to each other. If there's somebody that's maybe sort of struggling, they would be better coming down here because it's a one-on-one space. We just have a really good relationship where we can speak to each other about what's going on in school with some young people, what's going on with their bespoke timetables, how we're dealing with it, different programmes that we're running. We do run a lot of the same things, but they're just in a different setting at times, but we also have our own things to do as well. So I don't even know if I would say it's a cross. It's not much of a crossover. It's just very much another partnership within the school, and it's again another part of that lovely jigsaw that we have that's all linked to each other and all works together.
Are there any other questions? Feel free just to put a hand up if it's easier than putting it in the chat. I'm waiting because I noticed somebody typing in the chat, so I'm just going to give Mrs. Cameron a chance to type her question.
You can come off mic and just talk if you want to.
Okay.
Hi there, sorry, it wasn't a question. I was just writing a comment just to say well done and thank you. So it wasn't a question as such. I'm just finishing now.
That's very welcome all the same. Thank you
Very
for
much.
that. If there aren't any further questions, I think that's us for today. I really hope that you'll be able to join us for the next session that looks more closely at evaluating youth work and school partnerships, and we'll share all of the slides and the links and so on from the meeting. Kat, is there anything else that we need to cover before we finish?
Just one plea, could you fill out the evaluation form? It only takes a few minutes. I've put the link in the chat. This really helps us, and it will be reviewed between this and the next session. So if there's a burning question, then we would really appreciate it. If there's something that you're thinking that we could do a lot better, then we'd really appreciate it, because we'll make changes between now and the next one. I'm just going to say thank you very much to all of our presenters today. To Maureen and Jackie, thanks very much for giving up your time to come along and tell us your story. Having been to the school myself, I can certainly vouch for the lovely atmosphere. And thanks also to Jill and John.
Thank you.